Hi, it's JamesAnimalHarrison. It's time for Sunday Stories. Today we're going to talk about a little bit of a left turn I made a long time ago that didn't really pan out. And I guess the moral of this story is some of the decisions you make are not always going to benefit you or work in your favor, but you could find something out of it to learn from. I think it was 1985, late 1985. I was in Murray, Kentucky. I had been on the road with a group called the Keys, which I talked about in a previous story. It could have been 86, but I want to say it was 85. And I graduated college, and I was just playing and trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I had these aspirations of building up a bank, so to speak, building up a lot of money, and trying to move to Nashville. And I had several friends that had moved to Nashville that took jobs that I really had. None of them were music related. They were just doing various jobs in the park, just trying to get into Nashville. And I kind of wanted to do the music end of it and whatnot, but I went down there a couple times and checked out the Union and went to the, back in the old days, they actually used to have bulletin boards with announcements and stuff on them. And this was I guess I'd say 1990-ish, when really things took off quite heavily in Nashville, late 80s, early 90s. But it's always been a bit of a cutthroat scene, but I guess I know a lot of people that have persevered and made it there, so obviously if you network the right way, it can work out for you. And I had pretty much decided I was going to do that, and Dave Wells, who was the marching band director at Murray State and then eventually Boise State, had convinced me to go to Reno. Now, a fellow student that I went to school with had gone to Reno, and his name was Jay Fern. He and his wife Suzanne had gone to Reno, and I think through connections with Dave, they agreed to let me come out there and stay for a bit while I tried to figure things out. So I decided to give it a try, so I packed up and loaded my station wagon up to the hill with drums and a few things and went to Reno. And I went out, Jay introduced me to some people. We went to Circus, and I met the drummer there and was just trying to find out what the scene was and whatnot. And I think I was there, I can't remember what day I got there, but it seems like within a week, might have even been that next week, the musicians all went on strike. All the union musicians went on strike, which in Reno meant everybody, because it was a heavily controlled union scene. And I think they went on strike, if my memory serves me correctly, because of the use of synthesizers was starting to take place at some of the bigger casinos where they had strings and winds before. They were eliminating some of that in order to save money and go to electronics. And so it created a strike. So here I am going there to try to get into the scene, and they go on strike. And I had gone to a music store called Bizarre Guitar and put up a card, and I went to see a couple things that kind of were going either, I guess you'd say, like outlaw and stinking gigs in where the union wasn't suspected or whatnot. I met a guitarist there. I want to say his name was Rene, but I'm not positive about that. Talked to him, and he had picked up a gig, and it was in Oregon. So I drove to Oregon and played this. It was snowy, it was cold. I can't remember the name of the town. It escapes me right now, but it was pretty small. Played this bar there for, I guess it was probably a week. It had a band house, and we stayed in that band house, and there was also a restaurant attached to the bar, so we got food. And I played the gig. It was pretty much throw together. I don't really feel like anybody knew each other, so it was kind of winging it type of situation. And it was okay, but I drove back, and I was getting pretty disillusioned with Reno. I guess the one positive thing that did happen while I was there was I hit a jackpot gambling at the old MGM before it became Bally's. And with the winnings, I went to the PASIC convention, and I stayed with Tom Van Arsdale, who happened to be there. He was my instructor at Murray State. So, and I came back, and I played another gig in Sparks at a bar that was next to a Holiday Inn. And again, and it was winging it. It was very difficult to get a sound in the room because the entire walls of the bar were sheet metal that somebody had taken a hammer to and just hammered it to make it decorative. So it was super bright and super loud. But I played that gig, and again, I think they were trying to fly under the radar of the whole union thing. And so I think total, I was probably there about 6 weeks, maybe a tad longer. I know I wasn't there more than 2 months. And thanks to Jay and Suzanne for letting me live there, and then through some connections at UNR, University of Nevada, Reno at the time, now it's just called University of Nevada, I moved and rented a room out of a house with some other people that lived in this house that were college level or master's level students. And I was probably only there a couple of weeks, and I got a phone call. I didn't have a cell phone at the time. I guess I was calling my mom, and she said, "Oh, these guys you used to play with called, and they're going to be going to Florida for like 2 months over the holidays to play these gigs down in Naples, Florida." And I was like, in. I didn't see an end at all to the musicians' union strike. In fact, I don't know. I know eventually it ended, but I don't think the musicians won because the synthesizers and electronics began to replace a lot of players. So I packed up and moved all the way across the country, back to Kentucky, but I went to Evansville, Indiana, and met back up with the Keys, and I think I probably rehearsed with them for a couple days. I had played with them before, so I knew the majority of their stuff. And next thing I know, we're going to Florida, and we go all the way down to Naples. And I don't remember driving that, but it could have been possible that I did, because I know they had a van and a trailer. But we went down to Naples, and again, we had a van house situation next to a club, and I think it was called the Witch's Brew. Anyway, we played in Fort Myers first, on the right next to the pier on the beach, and I think it was called Top of the Mast was the name of the club. We played there, and then we played in Naples, and I met some people that were like NBC executives and stuff like that, because a lot of them would vacation down in that area over the holidays. So I mean, it was a little strange to be 77 degrees on Christmas Day and you're sitting on a beach and you don't know anybody, but at the same time, it was a welcome stretch from the unsureness or uneasiness of how was it going to make it work in Reno, where if I went to Naples, I knew I was going to make a good chunk of money. So I went back to there, ended up staying with the Keys again until probably about April, and then decided that I needed to be doing something else again, and that wasn't too long before I was back in the Paducah area getting ready to move to Nashville. And Dave Wells, I was doing some camps for him, and he called me about going to Boise. All these are back in the other Sunday stories, and you can check them out. So that was my ticket. I thought, all right, I'll roll the dice and try Boise. I ended up in Boise for 32 years. So anyway, there you go. There's a Sunday story of my trip to Reno, and hoping things were going to work out, but the rug kind of got pulled out from under me, and really zapped me motivation-wise. So there's my Sunday story of my time in Nevada, or time in Reno. Thanks.